Welcome, everyone. The meeting of the Faculty Senate will come to order. For our colleagues connecting from a distance, there's a slight delay, so please begin your reporting with Potomac State or WVU Tech votes and then the number so that we don't lose any important information. Potomac State, how many are present?
Potomac State has 2 senators, Merrifield and Goff.
Thank you. And WVU Tech Montgomery, how many are present?
WVU Tech Montgomery has 2 senators present, Barco and Davari.
Thank you. And just so that everyone knows, we're only connected to the 2 campuses this afternoon. We do have a quorum for today. The minutes of the previous meeting were distributed as an annex to your agenda. Are there any corrections to the minutes from the March meeting? All right, hearing no corrections, the minutes are approved. The next thing that we have is our report from President Key.
So good afternoon. Come on, good afternoon. Do I look any the worse for wear? No, I'm not. I'm still standing, as a matter of fact, and so are you. Let me talk about our legislative session, if I can kind of get my arms around this for all of you. And then I'll let Joyce deliver all of the good news. We actually have, we have 3 pieces of legislation that we worked on. One was the personnel bill to overhaul the personnel system as it affected the university, and that was passed and has been signed by the governor, and that is a significant victory for the institution. The second was what I call the HEPSIT bill. Oh, come on, catch on to this. Brexit, HEPSIT, okay, come on. Okay, thank you. You're a little slow, my friend. Anyway, that one has been passed. We are, free at last, free at last. That will be a significant improvement for us. So both of our bills were passed, and we have every belief that they will be signed by the governor. The third issue, of course, is the budget. They're at an impasse. They thought they had a deal. They kept getting close to a deal, and then they didn't have one. The good news is the fact that no one really wants to have a negative impact on the university. The bad problem is the fact that no one wants to raise revenue either. And so until we can get that kind of a compromise to take place, frankly, when you come to end of a legislative session, and I remember this so very well when I was here before, that they would get scrambling, and sometimes bad decisions would be made. Other times it would be impactful without them really realizing the impact that they had. I think the fact that they can now take a moment to take pause, I think the governor will veto the budget, and then the negotiation will start again. And hopefully we'll end up somewhere along the lines of what he's proposed, a couple of modest tax increases. The problem is this, is we have a $500 billion budget deficit now that we need to cover. But unless we do some revenue enhancement along the lines that he suggested, we'll have a $700 million budget deficit next year. So in other words, we've got to turn around our budgetary cycle so that we're not continuing to fight on the back edge of this. So I think it is it's good to have a pause. Hopefully we can work very hard as a part of the solution. We certainly have a lot of opportunity to do so. And so I wish I could just say it's completed, and we can all go on about our lives. You go on about your lives, and I'll worry about it for both of us, if that's all right. So saying that, I really welcome any questions that any of you may have. Singer, yes, good.
Suggest that I know, some of us in the faculty called senators at your request, and should we do the same with Governor Justice, or you don't think it's necessary?
No, he is. The governor is heroic in this effort. Absolutely. And by the way, I want to express my thanks. Everyone did do their. They felt the the overwhelming support for the university, and that was very helpful because I think that that really did make a difference. And when we have to do that again, we will do it. I told our board in my note that I send to them every Monday, I told them that this morning, that, I believe that prudence is important, but action is equally important. And so when we have to act, then we have to act. And I think that we did so in an appropriate way. But I appreciate that very much. And thanks for the question. Any other questions? David?
Dave Hauser, Eberly. Just since there is no state budget, I'm assuming that WVU has no budget for next year, and do you have any idea when WVU will come up with one for guidance for departments and other things, purposes for the fall?
Well, we have budget parameters that we're dealing with, but we don't know quite how narrow those parameters are going to be. But obviously, my intention, and the provost and I really haven't had a chance to talk about this, my intention is to continue to move forward with an expectation that this issue will resolve itself in some appropriate way. One of the disadvantages of being a state university is the fact that the state has no money, and they have slowly diminished our resources. We're only down to about 15% of state support. The advantage of being at 15% of state support is the fact that we control at least 85% of our budget. So that way we are in sort of one of those holding patterns where we have to see what's going to happen with that $150 million. The university side of the budget is about $1 billion. The overall university budget is $3 billion when you count the medical center. But for budgetary purposes, we're planning to deal with that 85% as if we continue to move forward, with the hope that the gaps will get filled. Any other questions? Saying that, shall I introduce the provost? You want to? Come up with some good news, Joyce, okay? Get up here as fast as you can.
I think I can. So just following on the budget discussion, I do want you to know that we've been working very closely with the deans, and we had a meeting with them a week ago, along with the CFO of the university, to start re-examining the parameters for the budget to make sure that we all are on the same page, and trying to figure out what our next moves are going to be. So we're on top of it, and we're working hard, and hopefully Gordon is right that he will be able to close the gap. That's what we keep working on, so that's great. We've had great leadership in the legislature. That's the good news. I can't imagine that we could have accomplished as much as we did this legislative session if we had not had such good representation and had not had the president available to build the kind of relationships that we need to build. And I want to give you a few examples of those successes that in their absence, they don't seem like successes, but the fact that we fought them off are. So the first one that went away, died a very quick death, was campus carry. And that's something that we've been very, very concerned about. It was brought up last year, it was brought up again this year, but it died a very quick death, and we're very fortunate for that, and we hope we'll be able to do the same next year if they bring it up again. But that is a success. Another success was bringing up RFRA again, the Religious Freedom Act, and we were able to make sure that that didn't raise its head again. And so even though that's not something that we can show you on a plate and say, look, this is what we did, the absence of having that, of having to deal with what that would have meant for us as a community is tremendous. So for all of you who helped with those kinds of issues, I wanted to let you know that. And then there are some things that didn't affect higher education directly that are also good things, and there are some bad things. There are some changes that went through that, people will have different opinions about. But on the higher ed side, I think with those issues that directly affect us, that we know what the community's position on those things are, like RFRA and campus carry, I think we should feel good about what we were able to accomplish. One of the things that Faculty Senate has brought up a couple of times is Title IX training, how we interact with our Title IX office. And so I wanted to share with you that we've been working to figure out how we might do an introduction to Title IX when people are onboarding as new employees. And so we now have a new introduction to online and in-person training offered by the Title IX office, and it will be shown to all new employees during their onboarding sessions. We think onboarding is a valuable experience for new employees who are being exposed to the culture of WVU, their benefits, and their resources on and off campus. We saw this session as an opportunity to emphasize our commitment to creating a safe, hostility-free environment for our students and our employees. Now, don't laugh when you see this film, because you will see me, and it's not pretty, and I apologize for that. That's the worst part about having to see this video in onboarding. They'll all run away and say, oh my God, that can't be our provost. But anyway, you can go ahead and roll this film.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Joyce McConnell, Provost and Vice President of Academic Affairs here at West Virginia University. And I'm here to introduce you to an incredibly important topic on today's college campuses: sexual assault prevention and Title IX. Title IX isn't just about athletics. It's about preventing discrimination based on sex. Sexual assault and its detrimental effects fall under this rule. The reality is that about 1 in 5 women and 1 in 16 men are sexually assaulted while in college in this country. And rape is the most underreported crime. An estimated 63% of sexual assaults are not reported to police. This has to stop on our campus, on every campus. We believe a big part of that effort will be you, our employees. Whether you're brand new to campus or a 30-year veteran, our responsibilities remain the same. It's on us to be aware of the issues and to be resources for our students and for each other. Here to walk you through this complex topic is Senior Title IX Education Specialist, Mariana Matthews.
Hi, I'm Mariana Matthews, and I'm here to help you understand what you need to know and how you should respond when you see or hear about a potential Title IX violation. Let's start with the most commonly asked questions. Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972 states that no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. That means once a school like WVU knows or reasonably should know of possible sexual misconduct, it must take immediate and appropriate action to investigate, to stop it if it's happening, prevent it from happening again, and address its effects. It means if you receive a paycheck, you should be aware and report anything that could be sexual misconduct. Sexual misconduct is both sexual assault and sexual exploitation. So basically, any behavior of an unwanted sexual nature that is prohibited by Title IX and WVU, and any behavior that limits someone's ability to participate in or benefit from our educational programs. That means unwanted sexual contact, unwanted sexual intercourse, stalking, domestic and dating violence, retaliation, sexual harassment, and sexual exploitation, which is taking sexual advantage of another person without consent. Let's try an example. Say a student comes up to you and says the reason they didn't turn in their assignment was because they'd gotten drunk the night before and woke up somewhere they weren't familiar with, without their clothes on, and they weren't sure what happened. One, you make sure the student knows you aren't a confidential resource. You must report anything you are told, but you can direct them to me. I'm a 24/7 anonymous resource, which means they can call me anytime and tell me anything. I can tell them about confidential resources like counselors, lawyers, or pastors. I can also help them contact the police or get free medical testing. You can tell them where to file a complaint online at titleix.wvu.edu or in person at the Division of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, located at the Suncrest Center, 1085 Van Voorhis Road, Suite 250 in Morgantown. Next, you should report what you've heard. For most employees, this starts with contacting their supervisor. Let your supervisor know exactly what you've heard and make sure they fill out the complaint form online at title9.wvu.edu. You should also make sure your supervisor alerts the Title IX coordinator. There are a few important things to remember about Title IX in the workplace at WVU. If you or someone you work with is experiencing sexual misconduct, you can report it online in the same way we just discussed. You should also keep in mind that certain workplace situations might create the potential for misconduct, such as when two people employed by the university are engaged in consensual relationships. Relationships that occur between people in unequal or closely related positions at the university can create complications. For example, those who work for the same supervisor, or if one person is a supervisor and the other a supervisee. Employees in this situation should be aware that such relationships could create circumstances where sexual misconduct could occur. These situations can also lead to a hostile or offensive environment for others due to perceived favorable treatment. And in the case of a teacher-student relationship, faculty members and instructors are prohibited from engaging in consensual relationships with any student the faculty member or instructor evaluates, supervises, teaches, or advises. When these relationships are pre-existing, the faculty member or instructor should always notify their supervisor or the appropriate administrator. Remember, anytime you have a question or need to fill in a blank, contact the Title IX office. We're here to help.
Thank you for being part of our great campus community and for taking the time to understand your role in our Title IX responsibility. I'm confident that working together, we can make our campus a safer place for everyone.
Thank you. So, announcements. There's a camp song about announcements, but let me go through them pretty quickly because I know that took more time than you thought. One really exciting thing that we launched 2 years ago and are doing again this upcoming year is the Campus Read. And I'm very excited. This year's Campus Read will be Hidden Figures, the story of the African American women who helped win the space race. And I think that that's going to be incredible. Several of the real-life women who are central characters in this book have close ties to West Virginia, including Katherine Johnson, now 98 years old. She was the first African American to attend graduate school at WVU. Last May, we recognized her achievement with a Presidential Honorary Doctorate of Humane Letters. We will be soliciting ideas from all of you for events and programming around the Campus Read, so please pick up your copy at the bookstore and start reading. Engage with this wonderful book. We hope to make this year's Campus Read experience even more inclusive and powerful, and we're working with the author to come as one of our festival speakers, so that should be very exciting. The other thing is, if you do any work in the public schools or have children of your own that you'd like to share this with, there actually is a young adult reader of Hidden Figures. I believe it's targeted at middle school, and so this is something that we can really use in 4-H and through the schools as well. So we can make this a big community engagement project. The update on the Associate Provost for Undergraduate Education. We all know now that Sude Prutz is retiring in August. She's extremely happy about it. You see that smile from ear to ear. But we did a job description, we posted it, we opened up the application period, and we got many more applications than we could have imagined. So thank you to any of you who applied in this room. We're very excited to have so much interest in that position. Because of the number of applications we got, we're going to do a two-stage process. We've come up with 3 factual scenarios that we're going to ask candidates to respond to. We're going to do the first round of interviews by phone, half-hour phone interviews with the 3 scenarios. And then we're going to take the responses to those scenarios, boil it down, and interview a few toward the end of the process. So we're still trying to stay on track for making a decision by the beginning of May, and I'll keep you updated about that. But again, thank you all very much for your interest in the position. The applications were very strong, and that makes these phone interviews very, very important. We identified 4 finalists for the position of Associate Provost for Information and Technology, or the CIO. One of them was on campus last week. 2 more will be on campus this week, and the final candidate will visit next week. Each candidate is delivering a public presentation that I encourage all of you to attend. Check e-news and WVU Today for the schedule, and you can find out where and when. I also want to say that Fernando Lima won an NSF Career Award, which is huge, and we like acquiring as many of those as possible, so keep that in mind. That was a wonderful thing. The Critical Language Scholarships were announced, and please pay attention to that. And our faculty awards season is upon us, as well as student award season, and these are all being announced in e-news. Please pay attention to those and send notes to the people who are being honored. And at least one of our faculty senators, Carolyn Atkins, is being honored. So there may be others, but that's the one that I know of now. So thank you very much.
Okay. The Office of the Registrar has developed a new course change type in Chem that you should be aware of called campus adoption, and this is for the process that now occurs strictly by paper and through email related to campuses wanting to adopt a course that exists between campuses. So now this will go through the Chem workflow. What this allows is for a campus to adopt a course, so Potomac State or WVU Tech or the main campus in Morgantown to adopt a course from another campus. The workflow assures approval from all the relevant department chairs on the campus, and if it's a 300 level or higher course, it also goes to the Provost's office for approval. The workflow will include an FYI to the Faculty Senate Curriculum Committee, so now, whereas we typically don't know at Senate that these are happening, we will get for information at the end, but the process itself isn't actually changing. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. Next, we have statements from our candidates for Faculty Senate Chair-elect. The order was selected at random. Each candidate has 3 minutes, and first we have Emily Murphy.
Good afternoon. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to tell you a little about myself and why I would represent you well as Faculty Chair-elect and eventually Faculty Senate Chair. I have been a member of the WVU family since the fall of 1993 when I came here from Williamsburg, Virginia as a freshman. Because of the amazing opportunities I was given as an honor student and an undergraduate exercise physiology student, I chose to stay at WVU from both my master's and my doctoral work. While not a native of West Virginia is now my home, where my husband Eric and I have chosen to raise our 2 amazing children. I have been a faculty member at WVU since 2003 and am currently the obesity prevention specialist for Extension's Family and Community Development Unit. Prior to taking my current position with Extension, I was a research assistant professor in the Department of Pediatrics within the School of Medicine. My responsibilities related to my current position include providing obesity prevention and healthy lifestyle trainings to county-based Extension faculty, partners, and statewide stakeholders. Extension's mission, which is to build and help sustain collaborations and partnerships with people and organizations in West Virginia to improve their lives and communities, is truly what drives my work at both an organizational, university, and statewide level. As the current chair of Faculty Welfare Committee, I have had the honor of working with my colleagues from across campuses to focus on various issues that have the potential of making faculty's lives a little easier, but most importantly, more fulfilling. At a time when looming budget cuts are on the top of everyone's minds, our committee has focused on promoting such things as positive communication, workplace appreciation, inclusiveness, and transparency at all levels. Because the nature of my current position does not put me in direct contact with university students on a day-to-day basis, I purposefully recruit 8 to 10 undergraduate exercise physiology students each year, in addition to teaching portions of exercise physiology courses. As a member of the Student Conduct Board, I have a particular interest in culture change related to the use of alcohol and drug abuse, including prescription drug abuse and the resulting consequences of those actions. While we have various programs on campus aimed at both the prevention and treatment of substance abuse, we still need to seek out more ways to develop and implement strategies that will result in a cultural change related to these issues. My work with both extension programs as well as the Health Science and Technology Academy has made me passionate of both the recruitment and retention of all students, but even more specifically, students who are underrepresented here at WVU. By trade, I'm a pediatric exercise physiologist, and my passion is the promotion of lifelong physical activity and healthy lifestyle behaviors for West Virginia residents across the lifespan. I've had the unique opportunity to partner with various organizations, including PEIA, on several wellness initiatives over the last 15 years. Again, with current budget cuts across state entities looming, I feel that it is very important for Faculty Senate to continue to focus efforts on improving the levels of medical and prescription benefit coverage at a reasonable, equitable cost while providing wellness and prevention opportunities at the same time. Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have David Hauser.
Hi, afternoon. Afternoon. I'm Dave Hauser. I teach in the Department of Political Science and in International Studies. I teach a little bit in the Honors College, and I also teach the university wine tasting course. That's a lot of fun. I've been in Senate for about 3 years now. I've been at West Virginia University since about 2000. I've chaired the GEF committee. I've served on the TACO, the Teaching Assessment Committee, and also on the Student Responsibilities Committee. Over my time in various aspects of Faculty Senate, my focus has been on ensuring that the realities of what the faculty do, teaching, research, are known to the administration, so that as the administration budgets and creates regulations and administers the university, the faculty can continue to do things that drove them to become faculty and work to make this a better place overall. As Faculty Senate Chair-elect and then Faculty Chair, I don't have a specific project in mind. I don't come here with a specific agenda to try to accomplish. My focus will be on trying to be a responsible chair, responsive to the faculty, available to help the faculty and the administration, to help all of us explain what we do to each other so that all of us can move forward to make WVU a better and a better place. We need to work together to ensure that we have good governance at WVU across the board for everybody, and I want to work so that the faculty feel like their voices and concerns can be heard to everybody. I think the biggest concern facing us as we move forward are the budget problems that the state is having. We've already had some budget cuts. We're likely to have more, although President Gee, as noted, is working to hold those off as best as possible. We need to make sure that faculty have the ability to continue to research and teach, and to be promoted, to be tenured, even in these uncertain times and potentially difficult times. We do this by having strong communication among all faculty and administrators, and I hope to be able to do that as your Senate Chair-elect and then Senate Chair. Thank you.
An electronic ballot will be going out later this week. Please make sure that you look for that. And then I believe we'll be announcing at the next Senate meeting the chair-elect. Next, I want to recognize Karen Haynes with the Curriculum Committee report. And also within Karen's report, I will go ahead and recognize Sude Perutz to give a presentation a little later on.
Thank you. First, we have Annex 1, the new courses report.
Are there any objections or points of discussion for Annex 1? All those in favor of approving Annex 1, please say aye. Anyone opposed, no. Are there any abstentions? Potomac State, how do you vote?
Potomac State votes 3 ayes.
Thank you. WVU Tech Montgomery, how do you vote?
WVU Tech has 2 ayes.
Thank you. Annex 1 is approved.
And next, for your approval, we have the course changes report, Annex 2.
Are there any objections or points of discussion for Annex 2? All those in favor of approving Annex 2, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, no. Are there any abstentions? Potomac State, how do you vote?
Potomac State again votes 3 ayes. I'd like to make
Thank you. WVU Tech Montgomery, how do you vote?
WVU Tech has 2 ayes.
Thank you. Annex 2 is approved.
Next, we have for your approval the last harmonization report. And this is just with one course change, and that's Annex 4A.
Are there any objections or points of discussion for Annex 4A? All those in favor of approving Annex 4A, please say aye. Any opposed, no. Are there any abstentions? Potomac State, how do you vote?
Potomac State votes 3 ayes.
Thank you. WVU Tech Montgomery, how do you vote? I'm sorry, we didn't catch that. Could you repeat?
WVU Tech has 2 ayes.
Thank you. Annex 4A is approved.
All right. Next, we have for information definitions for various programs, and this is Annex 4B. This includes a number of definitions for how many hours and the overlap that would be allowed for minors and for programs. And our Associate Provost has a little presentation to help us understand this better.
All right, academic definitions. Let's talk about why does this matter? Why are we looking at it? Certainly our HLC accreditation requires that we present ourselves clearly, not only to the public, but to our students in regard to our program requirements and definitions. Also, remember ACRO. Degree audit and record keeping. We have a responsibility for the ability to track and audit our degree programs. So given consistency of definitions, that becomes very important. And as we have just ended the final harmonization, standardization and consistency across our campuses and the state institutions is vitally critical. If we're talking about a minor at one institution, it should be equivalent to a minor at another institution. Standard definition across higher ed. And recently, many of you have dealt with the challenges of making sure that students are in degree pursuant courses, and therefore financial aid is requiring us to have more clearly defined plans of study. So that's all of the reasons why we're looking at this. In addition, in the fall of 2015, one of the wonderful reports that greeted me upon entry into the office was an area of emphasis and minor report. And when I looked at that report, I was a little confused. How many credits do we have in a major? 30. It's a minimum number of credit hours in a major. Well, lo and behold, we had areas of emphasis that had 50, 60, and 70 credit hours. So we started looking at the definitions at WVU, and how did we get so far askew? So in spring 2016, a committee began working on the definitions. We had representatives across the colleges from health science, the registrar and registrar's office, and undergrad and grad education. In spring 2016, the Higher Ed Policy Commission released their review of Series 17. So even though we'd already been working on this, the HEPC release of Series 17 asked us to call upon even greater alignment and definition across the institution. So the committee worked for a good bit of the year of the 2016, and in the fall, there was a definition draft presented to assistant associate deans and deans in January, the Faculty Senate Curriculum Committee on February 2nd, the Faculty Senate Exec on March 27th, and then today sharing this, the definitions with you. What we'd like to do is in the next 30-day period plus is extend an opportunity for faculty and public comment. We recognize that we've gone through a series of committees and discussions, but maybe we haven't reached everyone. So this is an opportunity to have greater feedback and input. So overall, a very high-level review is there are basically no changes to degree programs. Assistant associate or associates, bachelors, masters, PhD are all fairly consistent and defined. Majors, there's no real difference in the majors. That is a primary field of study with its own curriculum, a minimum of 30 credits, and no more than shared credits across majors. Pretty standard. Minors, specific subject area with a minimum of 15 credits, of which 9 are upper division, and you may not earn a minor in your major field of study. We all know the language. You cannot minor in your major. So where there are some differences is in certificates. Now this time, WVU is looking at the definitions from an institution that offers associate's degrees through PhDs. So we really had to take into consideration the regional campuses. So specialized curriculum is a certificate for a specific body of knowledge for personal career development. My example to you is that in the past, you may remember that certificates at the undergraduate level had to be part of a degree. You had to be degree seeking to be able to enter into a certificate. And at the graduate level, it was allowed to be independent. We're just making this policy consistent with the Series 11, with the HEPC policy, and allowing certificates to happen outside of the baccalaureate degree program. This was requested by our regional campuses, and actually when we got into the discussion, we had a number of our campus programs requesting that they would like to look at that. And some of those areas are defined here: data analytics, global studies, equine studies. So there's a number that we think is attractive for an external audience. What's new is that it is independent of the degrees. There's consistent that it's 12 to 21 credits, and the credits may be applied to the degree program. And there's some specificity that's applied to that. We see this as a way of enhancing our degrees and attracting new students, particularly at the associate levels. The area of emphasis was the other area that we looked at changes. It is a specific subject area within a major. And as I said, we had area of emphasis creep. So we actually had some of our areas of emphasis with more credit hours than a major. The area of emphasis is a minimum of 12 credits and a maximum of 18, 9 credits at the upper division. The only new caveat to this was that a maximum of 6 credits may be shared with another AOE. So at the graduate level, there are 9 credits with a maximum of 12 credits. And finally, the next steps are we're going out for faculty and public comment. We welcome that. Lena's working with the Faculty Senate office to get a link to send out to all faculty for comment. We want to encourage you to have meetings. If you haven't had discussions in your college, certainly that's a good place to begin, to have the discussion in your college, certainly with associate provosts, both graduate and undergraduate. And actually, all of our committee members are available by request. If you want to meet within health sciences, you can contact them and we'll follow through. So our next steps will be send this out for public comment. We're going to share the comments, and we'll go back and confer with the Faculty Senate Curriculum Committee, and then present the definitions to Faculty Senate in August, September. The new associate provost will present in August or September. And then next year the focus will be working on the transition plan for 2018. We do have a lot of areas of emphasis and some minors and actually some certificates that may even be created. So we're going to need to work on an implementation plan over the following year. That being said, this will probably not take place until fall of 2019. You've got a transition year, and then you've got to put that into place. Questions?
Dave Hauser, Eberly. Can you tell us which of these definitions are mandated by either Hep C or a series versus how many of them were drafted in-house?
Series 11 is on the Hep C website. Our definitions are fairly aligned with, well, the certificate, we were out of compliance previously with Hep C, but we have made it as part of Hep C. The area of emphasis, we are vastly out of compliance with our credit number, with our credit hours, and because the language does specify that. And the 6 credit hour overlap is a WVU definition, frankly, because we're the only institution that has the depth and the breadth of the number of courses that could enable that to occur.
Last question. As a result of the Freedom Agenda, we're out from under Hep C, so do these apply to us anymore?
Well, we are still waiting individual interpretation of what the bill actually is. So we know that we will have some relationship with a governing body in the state. I think we're just doing the analysis now to find out what that will be specifically.
So based on that, you may revisit this.
Well, we still have to do it. Remember, it goes back to HLC, our higher learning accreditation requirements, just as standard good best practices for higher ed.
Thanks.
Thanks, David.
Lisa DiBartolomeo, Eberly College of Arts and Sciences. I'd like to recognize the chair of my department, Dr. Angel Tunanetti, from World Languages, Literatures, and Linguistics.
Hello, Angel Tuninetti, Eberly College. I appreciate the opportunity that we will have to comment on this addendum, because this is going to have significant impact in many departments, and mine especially, since there are several departments in which majors are defined as areas of emphasis. So I think we will need to find a way to work out the differences to basically to be able for us to keep our programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Angel. I think this is a great time to have a conversation about what is our curriculum, what are the kinds of ways that we can better serve students. One of the additional information that I'll share with you is recent research out suggests that students double majoring may not be the best opportunity for students, that maybe that we need to look at their economic employment. Maybe we need to look at other opportunities. And it's interesting that in addition to that research, they found that double majors actually coming from disparate fields, STEM and the liberal arts, result in significantly higher earnings than either one on its own. And this is a great kind of, I hope, idea starter for many of you. It may be the time for us to reach across colleges and look at how we can do some collaboration of second degrees or areas of emphasis. I know the Reed College has done that, and so I think it's probably a great opportunity. As you can see, if you're a STEM student and you have a little liberal arts, you have a great more employment opportunity. So this is a great time for us to look at curriculum and look at ways that we might be able to enhance students' employability. Thanks.
Next, for approval, we have a new major in strategic communications for Potomac State College.
Are there any objections or points of discussion for the new major? All those in favor of approving the new major in strategic communications for Potomac State, please say aye. Any opposed, no. Are there any abstentions? Potomac State, how do you vote?
Potomac State votes 3 ayes.
Thank you. WVU Tech Montgomery, how do you vote?
WVU Tech Montgomery has 2 ayes. I'm sorry.
Thank you. The new major is approved.
Next, for your approval, we have a BAS in SAGE, Sustainable Agricultural Entrepreneurship, and that's for Potomac State College.
Okay. Are there any objections or points of discussion for the new BAS in SAGE? All those in favor of approving, that's Bachelor's of Applied Science, please say aye. Anyone opposed, please say no. Are there any abstentions? Potomac State, how do you vote?
Potomac State votes 3 ayes.
Thank you. WVU Tech Montgomery, how do you vote?
WVU Tech has 2 ayes.
Thank you. The new Bachelor's of Applied Science is approved.
Next, for approval, we have the curriculum changes to the BS in Speech Pathology and Audiology.
Okay. Are there any objections or points of discussion for these curriculum changes? All those in favor of approving, please say aye. Any opposed, no. Are there any abstentions? Potomac State, how do you vote?
Potomac State votes 3 ayes.
WVU Tech Montgomery, how do you vote?
WVU Tech has 2 ayes.
Thank you. The curriculum changes are approved.
And lastly, for information, we have a new minor in Adventure Recreation Management for WVU Tech. I believe on the agenda it said teach.
Okay. Are there any questions or points of discussion for the new minor in Adventure Recreation for WVU Tech? Okay. Hearing none, that new minor is filed. Next, we have the Jeff Committee report with Lisa DiBartolomeo.
So we have a few courses. Hopefully everyone who was in the system as having identified more than one LEAP outcome has been weeded out and fixed. So now Kim, actually the vendor for Kim, is going to be able to ensure that no one accidentally does that going forward. So hopefully that will save faculty a lot of time when they're doing their reviews and putting courses forward for Jeff. So we have today a few courses for, is it approval? Information. I'm happy to take questions.
Are there any questions or points of discussion for Annex 3? Okay, hearing none, Annex 3 is filed. The next thing that we have to discuss is from an ad hoc work group that's been looking at GPA calculation. The question originated with a student who actually contacted the registrar about GPA calculation, and it led to a discussion that we have apparently had a few times before about how we calculate GPAs. I want to briefly run through the high points of what we've discussed and present to you two options that we would like for you to vote on in terms of a way we want to go with how we calculate GPA. Right now, you can enter plus and minus grades as final grades, and they will appear on the transcript. They are not, however, included in GPA calculation. An A is 4, a B is 3, and so on. But pluses and minuses don't count, with the exception of the College of Law, who has a plus-minus scale related to their specific accreditation. So everything I talk about today does not apply to the College of Law. That will continue to do what they need to do for accreditation. Some students have expressed concerns regarding the appearance of the plus-minus grade on the transcript while they're not actually being used in the calculation. And so when students apply to graduate professional programs, their GPA may either not be recalculated the way it needs to be for that program, or they may appear to be not as forthright as they are, because the program doesn't notice the notation on the back that does say that they're not used in calculation, but you do have to look for that notation to realize that that's the case. So we felt as a work group, and all the folks that we've had this conversation with, feels like one of two things need to happen. One of the things that we did in trying to determine what we needed to do was look at peer schools. The Provost's office provided our group with a list of 19 schools that it considers to be peers, and we looked at how they calculate GPA. So of those, and we're talking about undergraduate GPA here, so just for everybody to know that I'm talking about the research that we've done for undergraduate GPA. 12 schools use plus-minus grades in their GPA calculations. 5 did not, and 2 did something else that was probably closer to using plus-minus grades than it was what we do, but it wasn't the traditional one or the other. So we felt that one of two things needs to happen. Either we need to stop putting plus-minus grades on the transcript and calculate GPA the way we have, so that there is no mismatch between what's on the transcript and how we calculate, or we need to start incorporating those plus-minus grades in GPA. We are not suggesting a specific scale at this point, so if this is the direction we go, we'll have to determine what the scale is. So please know that I'm not attaching a scale to it at this point. We're just the concept of using plus-minus grades in the scale. There are pros and cons to both. If we maintain our current method of GPA calculation, but we don't include plus-minus grading on the scale, the feeling is that average GPAs will likely be higher than the alternative method. The registrar did provide us some data related to undergraduate GPA for the fall semester, looking at just a recalculation with the plus-minus grades that existed in the system, and there really was no difference. What that doesn't, of course, account for are individuals that don't grade plus-minus because they know they don't count, or student study habits because they know the plus and minuses don't count. And so it's a snapshot in time, but it's also not perfect for a number of reasons. This is the most logistically simple fix. The ability to enter pluses and minuses would be removed. They wouldn't show up on the transcript, but GPA calculations would remain as it is. From a con standpoint, it doesn't allow for fine differentiation. Most faculty that have been in part of this discussion feels that there's a large difference between, for example, an 89% and an 80%. And to be able to demonstrate that for students was something that a lot of faculty indicated that they would like to be able to do. I received an email earlier today from someone pointing out that for individuals who are competing for competitive graduate or professional programs, if they would have received a B+ if we included it, and they don't, that puts them at a disadvantage. Of course, if they would have received a B- and they didn't, it puts them at an advantage. So there's certainly those arguments there to be made. And so those are the things to think about for that option. The second option was where we start including pluses and minuses. It, of course, allows for the fine differentiation. It allows instructors who strongly believe they need to show that to be able to do so. And it's in line with the majority of the peer schools that we looked at. Our belief, although we have to actually try it to find out, is that average GPA will overall go down. That's going to have some impact on scholarships and financial aid because those have minimum GPA thresholds. This implementation is more complicated, and so it will have a lag time if this is the way we decide to go. The Promise Scholarship came up in particular. We looked at the number of students for the current semester, last semester, who had the Promise Scholarship, just shy of 4,000 students. 786 of those students are within 0.25 of the threshold that they have to maintain to keep the Promise Scholarship. So certainly this has the potential of either pushing somebody below the threshold or above the threshold, depending on how the grades shake out. I do think it's important for everyone to know that I looked up how GPAs are calculated at all other four-year West Virginia public schools, and plus minuses are not used. So we would be the only one in West Virginia doing that, and that has specific implications for Promise. So just something else to think about while you're considering this. There is no phased-in implementation option. The registrar has been part of this discussion. We need to change it as a full change. So we won't be able to take the class of 2021 and calculate their GPAs one way while we phase everybody out. It needs to be a full changeover. The committee discussed that, and we feel, especially in terms of letting students know how they're going to be assessed up front, that we would need to wait to implement this until the folks who are here coming in under the current GPA calculation method are gone, and it gives us time to educate students, educate faculty, give people time to switch over. And so we felt that a later implementation would be better. In addition to those reasons, this is something that actually has to physically be done by folks in the registrar's office, and given harmonization and some of the other projects they have going, allowing them time to develop the implementation is also something that we need to do. So 2021, which seems like a really long time from now, would be the switchover date if we were going to do it. We would spend the time between now and then getting ready, informing instructors so they can switch their grading scale if that's what they want to do, and that sort of thing. Incorporating plus minuses would not require you as an individual instructor or any individual instructor to assign them to classes. It's still up to you to define your scale and put that scale in the syllabus. It would just give you the option, and if you put it in as the final grade, it would count on the scale towards the GPA. The calculation method, so I made the point that we talked about this in the context of undergraduate. I did check with Catherine Carricker as it related to graduate and professional programs. She took that to her associate deans and deans, and my understanding from Catherine is that whatever we do for undergraduate will be what is used for graduate and professional programs. So while most of our discussion has happened in the context of undergraduate, the switchover will be for everybody, except for the College of Law, who will continue to do what they're doing. Does anybody have any questions about that?
John Coleman from Statler. I don't remember when because I didn't know this was happening, but I spent either 2 years or 3 years working to implement that the second option would happen, and it was like a 3-7-3-3, 2-7-2-3, like probably every other peer institution that's doing that. And on the floor of the Senate, it was brought up and presented for adoption in 2000, 2001, 2006, 95, I don't know. I've been here 32 years. I don't remember, didn't know this was happening, although I did read about Annex IVB with interest. But then there were a cadre of 3 or 4 people from student government that got up and commented they were recognized, and they had been tipped off and said it's in state code that we're not allowed to use plus minus to calculate the GPA. I believe it would be, I'd be a strong supporter of this, obviously, since I spent either 2 or 3 years of my career working on this. But that would be a good thing to look into before we spend any more time working on it.
Yeah.
And one wonders why that would be prevented or outlawed in state code also.
It is part of Hep C. I think I'm going to get my series right. Series 22. I've learned a lot about Hep C series in the last year. I'm pretty sure it's 22, and it gives a scale, and it doesn't include plus minuses. It also doesn't explicitly prohibit them, but then certainly the 2021 gives us time to sort out the potential changes because of the new legislation that I believe we're waiting on the governor to sign. So I do think there's more room now to make the change than perhaps there was in the past, but certainly we're aware, it's something we would keep an eye on, but we think we can move forward with this. As I'm as sure as I was, I'm as sure as I can be at this point that we can move forward if that's what the Senate votes to approve, but I do appreciate your comments, thank you. Any other comments? The annex that was referred to is a Word document that highlights the things that was in the PowerPoint presentation. What we decided to do in exec was to have an electronic ballot vote because we're presenting two different options. And I want you to have time to think about what it's going to mean because it either way is a change, but also there's certainly some good and bad to both. We are going to release the electronic ballot sometime this week. And so I can let everybody know at the next meeting how that goes. But the options will be option 1, where we stop putting pluses and minuses on the transcript and we calculate GPA as we do now. And then option 2 would be to start incorporating the pluses and minuses.
That's a Faculty Senate vote, not a Faculty Assembly vote.
Faculty Senate vote, yes. Okay. Well, hearing no other questions, I'll consider Annex, I forgot what number it is, 4B, filed. No, wrong one. 4B was the other one. 5B, or just 5. Just 5. We're out of order on annexes today. So next we have Lisa Martin with a May commencement update. Is Lisa here? Okay. Well, we will move on to the ACF report with Roy Nutter.
I don't know, again, how to follow up President Gee because he always puts it quite well. If you did watch over the weekend the last throes of the legislature budget vote, it was almost a manic depressive thing to watch. 1 hour, it was fully everything going on, and the next hour, nothing. And I think right now, it looks to me like what we've got, Nutter's interpretation. What we've got is the House and the Senate and the governor with 3 different budget ideas, but at least talking to one another. And I think 2 or 3 weeks is kind of what I hear that things may sort out. ACF itself will meet this coming week, and I'll let you know what's going on with that. There's not a lot of talk among state faculty really about anything. It's just, I think, standing back, observing the legislature is more what's going on. Question?
Okay, thank you. Next, we have the Board of Governors report with Stan Hallman.
So the board met on March 14th, and we received a legislative update. That was done completely in an executive session, though. We will also meet tonight and tomorrow with representatives from the Royal University of Women from Bahrain, which we look forward to. And our next regularly scheduled meeting will be on April 21st, wherein Richard and myself and colleagues from Potomac State and WVU Tech will present a faculty update to the rest of the Board of Governors. So that is my report.
Are there any questions? Thank you. The results of the most recent Faculty Senate election have been attached as an annex to your agenda. Are there any questions about that? Okay, Annex 6 is filed. We need to confirm the appointment of faculty secretary. The executive committee approved Chad Proudfoot from Extension Services as the new faculty secretary to complete the final 2 years of the current 3-year term. In addition to that, a motion was made and approved to appoint Chad to serve as the interim faculty secretary to finish out the rest of this first year. May I have a motion to approve or confirm the appointment of Chad Proudfoot as faculty secretary? Second. I heard about 4 of those. All those in favor of confirming Chad Proudfoot as faculty secretary, please say aye. Any opposed, no. Are there any abstentions? Potomac State, how do you vote?
Potomac State has 3 ayes.
Thank you. WVU Tech Montgomery, how do you vote?
WVU Tech has 2 ayes.
Thank you. The ayes have it. The appointment of Chad Proudfoot as faculty secretary is confirmed. Is there any new business? All right. Can I have a motion to adjourn? All right. Thank you.